Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. We're getting ready for our round three game. We really have, we're coming right off the heels of such an incredibly hype match right there. And I'm joined with Taylor Curry, and I'm Dimitri Warren. And yeah, we've been commentating for this tournament today. And, it's been legitimately awesome to watch. We've really
Exactly.
seen some great rounds already. And, right out there, we generally have some. Genius minds, in my opinion. I really think everyone who's there is just, really kicking butt out there. I mean, we have a lot of big names too. We got Riley Factura out there, as you guys can see. Brady Smith appears to be back and playing, and it's just a lot of fun to see everyone, back in the swing of things. We've kind of had a good bit of things happening over in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. We had the Lille tournament, and then the I couldn't pronounce the other one actually,
I
but
think it's Gdansk.
Gdansk. Okay.
All I know is that it's a city of Poland. um,
But over in Poland, so it's been a lot of European action kind of going on. So a lot of us over here are getting hyped for San Antonio, and what's going to be going into that. And I really do think that we are, looking at the precipice of some genuine awesome stuff to be happening in the meta.
yeah.
Also, Reggie is coming to an end soon, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest changes we've seen in Pokemon. And yeah, I mean, we're going to be seeing some pretty awesome stuff, don't you? Don't you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. And for like Regulation F, I know like not everything is confirmed yet, even though we do have some bonds confirmed for the release of the Indigo Disc. What do you think is the Pokemon that you think is going to be allowed that you are most excited about for Regulation F?
I mean, it is Incin, but it's also not Incin, if you know what I mean. Like, Incineroar is going to be one of the biggest deals whenever it does come around.
I am definitely very excited for Incineroar if it is allowed.
I'm gonna miss Arcanine. I'm pretty partial to Arcanine, and I'm no Gen Oneer, but Arcanine I think is among the peak of Pokemon design.
Right.
I think Arcanine is genuinely awesome. I get hyped for it every time I see it, and I'm so glad it's seen as much success as it has over the past recent couple regionals.
Yes, Hisuian Arcanine is definitely taking this season by storm. I think it has won almost every single regional.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of like what things it has and hasn't won, point is it's proven to be good, and
Yes,
it's proven to be just awesome to have, and it's going to be sticking around, I think.
exactly. I feel like that it's honestly going to be like a battle between Incineroar and Hisuian Arcanine.
So we do have our next round three pairings up. We have Brendan Nusser and Alex Ortega. Actually, two of our friends outside of all this. We have Brendan out here who's repping the Screamtail, Dragonite, Chenpao, Armor Rouge, Indeedee, and Ogerpon. And then over on Alex's side, we're seeing Dragonite and Chenpao once again with the Fluttermane, Heatran, Iron Hands, and Tornadus. Both sides, we're seeing a lot of Dragonite and Chenpao today, and that's one of my favorite pairings in the thing. And I'm really, really happy to see that Brendan's doing as well as he is with this team because it's got a bit of size spam in there, but it has Ogerpon Water, who, in my opinion, is my favorite Ogerpon form. I
Definitely.
also am never going to be mad to see Screamtail. Screamtail is you gotta love her. She's a baby. Yeah,
I
she's.
love Screamtail.
I
I
really,
feel like
I'm really excited to see what Screamtail brings to this matchup. I know Alex and Brendan both are very skilled players and up in Jacksonville, and I'm pretty excited to see. I mean, obviously they're not up there, but we hang out with them a lot. We know what they do, and Alex, he doesn't play around. Alex is one of my favorite guys to play against, beyond the shadow of a doubt. We also got a little Fuecoco plush action there going on, and and a Dragonite. So he's at least bringing the rep of his team too.
yes, and I also saw him do a little wave, and it was very nice to see him waving to us on
Alex,
stream.
that's our boy. That's our boy for sure. And hey, I mean, Brendan's also our boy. I love all of our guys. So yeah, now we're currently getting ready to see, what exactly they're going to bring into this. With the size spam side of Brendan, I mean, obviously we're going to see things slow down a good bit, but Chenpao and Dragonite aren't always that affected by size spam. They're both priority damage mons. They're not
Exactly.
speed damage mons. Whereas like over on Alex's side, it's just good stuff. You can't be mad at any of those picks. They're all really, really, really good mons.
It's just all the good stuff.
It's all good stuff. And over on Brendan's side, honestly, I'm really wanting to see Screamtail win here. I love
Yes.
Screamtail, and I want to see it go far. I really want to see, it brings so much to so many teams. And I definitely think that, after about Reg B or C, it really stopped being utilized as much. And maybe that's because it's, I can't keep up with the other mons, but I don't know if that's the case.
Right.
I think Screamtail has a lot to bring to the table in terms of just raw utility that a lot of people don't really give it credit for, in my opinion. And then over on Alex's side, I mean, I'm really interested to see, what his Heatran set's going to be like, what exactly that brings to the table. And, ultimately, if he's able to play around that psychic terrain with the priority that he's using with Dragonite and Chien-Pao, if he brings them, he also may realize, no, that's a terrible thing to do. But then Iron Hands is going to suffer also due to the fake out. Then again, though, Iron Hands is a great bring here. So is Heatran. Both of them tend to work pretty well in Trick Room if you have them calced right. But, we're going to see some pretty interesting stuff here no matter what happens. Ogerpon is definitely kind of, in a strange spot for me, from my perspective anyways, when it comes to the speed that it does fall into, because Ogerpon is very fast, and it doesn't always work well in Trick Room. But if you throw that next to Dragonite Chien-Pao, that's when Ogerpon, I think, really gets to be good. You're getting like Ogre-Pow, you know what I mean?
Ogre-Pow.
Getting some, elemental, not elemental, but like, you get that grass, fire, water damage out in the field, and, that can be a huge deal. So now we're going into round 1.
And we are going to be seeing Iron Hands and Chien-Pao on Alex's side, and the dynamic duo of Indeedee and Armarouge on Brendan's side.
Honestly, a really good lead by both. I mean, Alex, I think he had to know that the size spam was probably inevitable here, but Chien-Pao really matches up well if it can get some good damage off and not instantly get melted by that Armarouge and its armor cannon.
Right, and I did notice that this Indeedee has skill swap on it.
Interesting. Okay. So when it comes to skill swap, I mean, that could be really handy for, well, a lot of things, but also just taking off bad things from your friendly mons as well. It's its own form of, being able to mitigate some of those negative stat drops as well.
Right, and that Armarouge also has Clear Smog on it, so I really appreciate the creativity that Brendan has brought with his team that I can already see. And obviously with the Screamtail, as it is not really considered one of the quote-unquote good stuffs, but we are going to see Iron Hands translates into the water type, which is going to be really good in order to take a lot less damage from something such as that armor cannon.
Absolutely, yeah. Iron Hands is going to be in a much better position there, beyond the shadow of a doubt. We're still going to see a good bit of damage come out here, but I mean, ultimately, Chien-Pao, it can get some damage off to everything else, but the Armarouge is going to be rough for that Chien-Pao, I think, even though he's not that affected by it. They're in a weird spot, I think. Now, Ice Spinner, I think, was a very big deal here. We're not going to see any more of the anti-priority, parts of the Psychic Terrain, and we're going to see Indeedee take a Drain Punch. Honestly, this is such a great turn for Alex in terms of how he's dealing with Psy Spam and ultimately dealing with getting rid of that Indeedee. Because not only is Indeedee down, Indeedee's not coming back. And that's the important part when it comes to Indeedee is sometimes she gets out of the way when Armarouge is doing its thing and he puts something else next to Armarouge, and Indeedee's fine. Like, Indeedee can just come in with that Psychic Terrain and shut things down, and I see ultimately that's a lot of the value it brings to these games is it's shutting down that priority. It's having a similar thing to like what I was talking about with Farigiraf in round 1, where it's always a threat. It's always in the back of your mind. You always need to think about Indeedee. Even when it's on the field, it's still a threat. You could still get follow mead. You could still get it could blow up in your face really bad.
Exactly. And I feel like that having a mon, being able to be paired with something as offensive as Armarouge, I feel like that just creates a recipe for disaster when you're playing against it. Even though Psy Spam doesn't always win everything, it is still such a good mode.
You will almost always run into Psy Spam in every tournament that plays anything after Sword and Shield. That's beyond the shadow of a doubt right there.
Exactly. And it is so good.
It's always going to be good. It's always going to feel awesome. Armarouge or Hatterene, which Hatterene also could inevitably come back. But yeah, so now we're going to see Brendan go for the Terra over onto his Chien-Pao.
And that is going to be the Ghost.
Yeah, which honestly I think is a great pick here. Even if Alex Ortega is not necessarily threatening any sort of fake outs or anything, I do think that, it's still a fighting type. It still needs that fighting type damage for the most part. And, it can really be rough. We are going to see a Sucker Punch come out into the Ghost-type Chien-Pao, and that's going to take a good bit of damage.
What a read.
Yeah, big time. Now, Alex is going to be taking a good bit of damage himself and ultimately losing his Chien-Pao.
And I think that Champao is also going to be going down.
We saw the Chim Pals ultimately exhaust each other and take each other out, which, how fitting. The two cats go for each other a little too hard. So, that's not quite as good for Iron Hands. It's not getting that defense drop over onto Armor Rouge. And Armor Rouge, Brendan knew that. He kept the Armor Rouge protected, and now Armor Rouge technically is going to get some bulk off of this, if I'm being honest. He doesn't have to worry about that sort of ruin drawing him back.
Right, exactly. And now Alex is going to be sending in his Heatran, and Brendan will be sending in, his Dragonite.
Yeah, and honestly, Heatran's a pretty good pick here into dealing with Armor Rouge, but you do have to be a little bit careful in terms of dealing with Dragonite because, you got to rely on that Hands for the damage then. And, Hands is a very bulky mon, but I don't necessarily know that it always does the best offensively, especially when dealing with things like this. It all depends on, what this Dragonite is ready to take and what it's made for.
Yeah, I feel like that Hands will probably almost always do a good chunk of damage, but I feel like there are certain things that it is just so good into, but I feel like that it is just certain moves, certain mons.
Yeah, absolutely. I also love the nickname over on Hands. It's Magi right after our boy. Adrian does typically help us all out with a lot of our mons, so it's really cool to see that, that's a running tradition amongst us. Heatran gets taken out with the one-hit KO, though. Honestly, ground type is not good for Heatran.
Absolutely
it does not like taking it.
But neither is Electric.
Wild Charge into Dragonite. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That Dragonite was mad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it took a good bit of damage there, but it is still ultimately staying on the field here. We see a shiny Dragonite then come out to meet his non-shiny brethren. And, we're still in a pretty interesting match here. Both opponents are down to 2 mons. They both have 1 mon, down in the yellow, less than 50%. Now, the 1 mon that is in the yellow, that is, not Dragonite, that's now dead. We have the Hands, which, even if he is going to be, low on a little bit of health, he can take damage. And that's exactly right there what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
We see the Wild Charge fly out of the Armor Rouge, and he's going to take a good bit of damage. And he also procs his weak armor. Now, this could be a pretty big deal for, maybe letting Armor Rouge deal with, what's going to be coming here. But you're still dealing with priority from Dragonite. And that can ultimately be the game here. And I think that's what we're going to see right here. Armor Rouge goes down to extreme speed, and Alex takes round 1.
Right, that was a really good play by Alex, and especially that read, like when the Champao Terrasilize into Ghost, and read that also really helped him.
That's one of my favorite plays I've seen so far.
Win the game, yeah.
That was pretty cool, yeah.
It actually reminded me of the Latin American International Championships when the winner or the finalist of the junior division made that same read.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's really cool.
Into another, I think it was a Chi-Yu, like a Chi-Yu that Terra Ghost.
Yeah, and that's a pretty common Terra when it comes to Chi-Yu. And, I haven't really seen a lot of Chi-Yu today. I mean, I feel like, honestly, more than anything, we're seeing a ton of Dragonite Chien-Pao.
Right.
And a lot of people really agree that it's just good. It's just
so
good.
It is honestly probably my favorite duo in competitive Pokemon. It is just so good, and I feel like that it's just, I mean, obviously, most people run the same 4 moves on Chien-Pao, like they do the Sacred Sword, Protect, Sucker Punch, and then they either do Icicle Crash or the Ice Spinner. It depends on what they're looking for. I personally am an Ice Spinner believer.
Absolutely, yep.
Especially with the terrain, with grassy terrain, psychic terrain, all of the terrains.
Absolutely.
But with, like, Dragonite, I feel like you can have, like, versatility. Even with the Choice Band, you can switch in and out and adapt in regards to whatever your opponent is bringing out.
Absolutely, big time. And yeah, so now we're lining up for, I believe, is going to be our game 2, correct?
Correct. It is going to be our game 2, and I'm very excited to see whether both of these players bring out the same leads or if they bring out totally different ones, and we're about to see it right here.
There's a lot of mind games going on in this matchup. I mean, that's all about what Size Fam is. Now, I do think this was a great call on Brendan's part. We currently have Alex bringing out Iron Hands and Chien-Pao, a really big offensive threat here with 2 physical attackers here. Now, I do believe that when it comes to, Screamtail, it has a lot of things that it can really threaten. It can really add a lot, especially with this set where we're looking at like Howl and Dazzling Gleam, Encore, and was that Protect, that last move?
It was Disable.
Disable, right. It was Disable. So when it comes to that side of things, you got to be careful. If you're not careful, you can lose games for just not paying attention to Screamtail.
Especially if you're running a choice item.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're going to see the Ogerpon go for a Spiky Shield.
And that Screamtail is going to go for a Howl, boosting both of their physical attacks. And I just love supportive sets on Screamtail.
It is so fun to watch. We're going to see it take a crunch, which was a good bit of damage, followed by a heavy slam, which is probably going to be it for poor little Screamtail. But Screamtail goes down, but Ogerpon does now have that +1 boost to its attack, and that could be really, really important here.
Right, and now I think either the Indeedee or the Armarouge on Brendan's side is coming out, and that is going to be the Armarouge. So yeah, really, really great play from Alex, KOing the Screamtail, even though it was sad to see it go down.
Absolutely, but it did its job. It got the
It
Howl
did.
off, and the Ogerpon is now in a much better position than it was before. It really is all about of just thinking about what you're going to do now.
Exactly.
When it comes to the Ogerpon, it can threaten a good bit of damage, especially in this position. I do think it's not getting any, one-hit KOs here.
Right.
I could be wrong. Chien-Pao, I do believe, that wasn't the Life Orb Chien-Pao, right? We've seen a lot of Chien-Paos today.
Right. No, the Life Orb Chien-Pao was on
That was-
Brendan's side.
Okay, so this is probably Sash Chien-Pao then. So,
Right.
you're not one-hit KOing the Chien-Pao, even though I think Ogerpon could potentially pull it off. Chien-Pao is not a very bulky mon, if I'm being honest.
I feel like that if you went for a Terra Water Ivy Cudgel with the Howl, I feel like it could potentially...
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But unfortunately, the Terra Water isn't going to be terribly useful. Oh, and it takes a
that-
massive critical hit. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure that would have taken it down, but that's assurance right there. Ogerpon went
Right.
down, and that was a pretty big loss for Brendan.
Yes, that crit mattered.
So now we're going
a
to
lot.
see the Psy Spam come out once again, and that's going to be pretty interesting for Alex to navigate.
Right, because now the Chien-Pao cannot go for any sucker punches, nor can the Iron Hands go for any fake outs if it were to switch out and then come back in. So I think probably the best play for Alex would be to go for an Ice Spinner and just try to get damage.
Yeah, I agree with
Off.
that as well. I mean, Alex ultimately just has to carry home this game. He's in a very dominant position at the moment. He's up 4-2. His mons haven't really taken too much damage. I don't believe, actually, has he taken any?
I don't think he's taken any damage.
Yeah, so he's really, really played this game well. He's been very smart about every single thing he's thrown out onto the field. And, Brendan has some genuine, really good team building stuff here. But
Yes.
Alex, and because of that, Alex has to be careful, especially with Psy Spam.
Right, because Psy Spam can be a real major threat.
And we're going to see the Heatran come out, and that could be a big deal if Alex were to target that slot with Armor Cannon. That would just proc Heatran's Flash Fire and pretty much let Heatran clean up this game, I think. We're going to see Indeedee go for the Terra Fairy.
I feel like that if the Indeedee had gone for a Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam, that could have potentially done a lot of damage to that Chien-Pao and Iron Hands.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's going to be pretty hard, kind of navigating this last little bit, because Psy Spam is such a careful thing that you have to do. We are going to see Armor
Oh.
Cannon go into the Protect, not the Flash Fire. So Armarouge was not getting any damage off this turn. Alex kind of keeping his general, you can't hit me kind of mentality that he seems to be really carrying through this game.
Yes, and I feel like that is a really good mentality to have, especially in this matchup. Like, I don't know, because also with the Heatran, you can go for things such as, like, Protect, and I don't know if he's running Substitute on his Heatran, but that's also a really good way to sort of, like, negate damage.
Absolutely, yeah. And now that we know that, the Heatran's already out there, you don't have to worry about it coming in and, like, eating an Armor Cannon, which can be really, really bad.
Yes.
So, like, that is at least a bit of an advantage over on Brendan's side. We see the Indeedee go for Follow Me. With Heatran out on the field, that's a very dangerous thing to do for poor Indeedee, but also probably important, as Armarouge is going to be kind of the important damage dealer with this part. We're going to see Chien-Pao take some chip damage from the Rocky Helmet, but the Psychic Terrain is going to go down. Now, this does mean that Armor Cannon flies out right into Chien-Pao, probably instantly killing it. Yep, that's about what I expected. And, now we're going to see, what Alex follows up with, but we also still haven't seen what Heatran can do to
Right.
these two mons.
I feel like that it could go for, like, oh,
Flash
it goes
Cannon
for the
into
Flash
Indeedee.
Cannon.
So yeah, that's going to be Indeedee's life right there, and now we're pretty much just looking at Armarouge versus the world right now.
I feel like that without that Psychic Terrain, it's not able to get that spread damage that it normally would get from that Expanding Force.
Absolutely, yeah. That was going to be the important part of dealing with that Heatran was, getting the that psychic boosted, expanding force.
Right.
there's not a lot of great damaging options that Brendan is left with here, unfortunately.
Right, and now that the Dragonite is out and there's no psychic terrain, now the Dragonite is able to go for something like an extreme speed into the Armarouge.
Armarouge is definitely out of its element, especially with it, being versus the world right now. But it still gets a
Right.
good bit of damage off into Dragonite for what it is. But he is going to take an Earth Power, bringing it down to
Oh.
1 HP. I believe that was holding on with the Focus Sash. Yeah, so it's pretty par for the course. But Armarouge cannot outspeed Dragonite, and Dragonite can extreme speed. But I thought Dragonite came in this turn. My bad. Well, yeah, that's the game then.
All right, and round 3 is going to go to Alex Ortega.
Absolutely, yeah. That was a very strong game on Alex's part. I think Brendan, I really still like this team despite.
Yes.
I just think he, had the unfortunate reality of coming into dealing with Alex.
Yeah.
Alex is just such a strong player. He really knows
Right.
his stuff. And, I've seen the guy, he's been practicing like crazy ever since he started. This is only, I believe, his second season playing.
This is only his second season?
Precisely, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And so with that, like Alex just hasn't stopped, and he just continues to get better. And I'm
Right.
really excited to see where his time with Pokemon takes him. And this game was very exemplary of that. He knew what to
Yes.
do. He took as little damage as possible, which I think is such a genuinely impressive thing to do. You really have to know your stuff. You know what you have to be doing.
Mhm.
You know that. You have to make so many good calls to not even
Exactly.
take that level of damage. So that was very impressive on Alex's part, in my opinion. I really think it was such a strong game, and I think that Brendan did not go down without a fight either. though.
Right.
Brendan
Absolutely
really
not.
he tried everything he could. He definitely had a lot of really good options, but ultimately Spam just started to struggle with it when Alex knew what he was going to do to deal with it, and that's something that there's not much you can do with that when you're running a team like that. And it's not like you would just bring Chien-Pao and Dragonite to deal with it when, it's not always the best option. It's very much so kind of like you're done if you do, you're done if you don't,
Right, and I feel like Ice Spinner honestly really helped him get his clean 2-0.
With how common Spam is right now, I
Yes.
think that Ice Spinner is just going to kind of be the pick. In my opinion, I don't like losing to Spam though.
Yeah, it is definitely not a good feeling, and I've never played Spam myself. It does look really fun, and I do really like all of the creative picks that Brendan brought to the field, especially that Screamtail.
Absolutely, yeah, it was really fun to see. I really want to see, Brendan's not out of it yet. He could
Right.
absolutely pull this. I really want to see that Screamtail do well. I think it was such a creative bring,
Yes,
and I think he could still put a lot of work in.
exactly, especially with that Encore and Disable with all of these choice items running around.
Yeah, big time. I do forget about that because we see a lot of Choice Scarf Landorus right now, and I also a lot of Choice Scarf Urshifu whenever they're not running Landorus.
Also, a lot of choice band Dragonite and choice specs Fluttermane.
Yeah, I guess those are all things. Yeah, so I think Fluttermane could be great. Not
Yes.
Fluttermane. Fluttermane. That is great.
Fluttermane.
Yeah, but Screamtail, I think Screamtail has a lot of potential still.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, that was a pretty great round in my opinion. I really love to see them duke it out, and I really look forward to seeing how the two of them do in the future.
Yeah, I think both of them could definitely top.
Brendan, I think, definitely has a lot of potential here,
Oh,
especially with how
definitely.
he's done so far in the tournament.
Yes, and I feel like, again, with the Encore and Disable, I feel like that he's definitely going to make a lot of moves with all these choice items running around.
Yeah, big time. And it's all about just being smart and dealing with what everybody throws at him. And I know Brendan; he's a good player. I have a lot of faith that he's going to do well.
Yes, exactly. I think both of these players are going to do really, really well today.
So yeah, but I mean, were you happy to see that not Fluttermane? Were you happy to see Screamtail getting off what it was able to, or were you expecting more out of it? What did you want to see Screamtail do there?
I was expecting more of just Encore and Disable,
Yeah, that's fair.
but honestly, with that booster energy, with the speed, I feel like that it could have done a little bit more. But we can now look at the Pokemon usage that
Absolutely,
is
yeah.
currently on screen.
And we have some pretty interesting things here. Now, I know we have about 30 Masters here today, and 53% of them are bringing Iron Hands. That's of no surprise to me. I'm pretty happy to see it. Ogerpon is only really appearing here today in Water Wellspring form down at 28%, which is still not a little amount of teams to be on
Right.
here. We see a lot of just really good mons. Like I said, it's just the good stuff. Now, one of my surprising things I'm seeing here, though, is Golden Go is in 30% of teams. teams. That's a pretty big deal. I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited to see, what it's able to do here, and if it's able to, take away a tournament win. That would be really, really cool to see. Golden Go, this Reg A Mon, just kind of continue. Like it was gone
Yes.
for a little while, but seeing it come back would genuinely be so interesting, and see it like, it's already been doing pretty good again,
Yeah.
and I'm really happy to have it back. I think he's a pretty cool Mon, and I've never thought he was terribly, horribly too overpowered or anything. I
Right.
think he's pretty interesting as
Yes.
far as those Pokemon go.
He definitely is, because you could do like a setup set with like a nasty plot, or you could just do like a full on like offensive with just some like make it rain shadow ball, or you could even combine the two, which I've seen a lot of people do.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean
oh
to
no,
interrupt you.
no, you're
Okay.
good. But
Well,
it's just like it feels like that it always comes out when you least expect it. It always comes back into
Absolutely.
the regulation.
yeah, and I mean that's just how Golden Go is, and that's what makes Golden Go so funny and good. And honestly, I mean, what can you say? He's the 1,000th Pokemon. I'm happy to see him here.
Yeah.
I like Ogerpon a good bit. And then when it comes to a couple of other things, I did hear earlier that we apparently have quite a few incarnate Landorises, which is something that we did get to see over in round 1 with Zachary. 4 of them? Oh, which that's a good bit. 4 out of the 30 is still
Yeah.
much more than I would have expected to see when it comes to incarnate Landorus. But honestly, I think I'm here for the hype. I think he's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I'm
I
really
think he's really
he,
cool.
he gets the damage on the board. He hits like a freight train from what it looked like.
Yes.
And he could really stick on the field a good bit. I do think the grounded flying type maybe isn't always the greatest thing for him. But
I have seen Terra Poison be like run on.
yeah, and I mean, when it comes to the Terra Poison side,
Yeah.
like the interesting thing with that is Sludge Bomb. He runs
Yes.
Sludge Bomb, as we saw, and that came in clutch, especially with things like Ogerpon, with things like Rillaboom.
Yes.
Like, it's just good to see, like, I like seeing a little bit of poison damage still kind of kicking around in the meta, even if we don't really see a lot of poison types.
I mean, with the recent win that Wolfie had with Wheezing,
Oh, yeah.
there might
over in
be
that
some
other
more
tournament.
Wheezing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how that goes. I mean, Weezing's been everywhere, but hey, I'm honestly a little bit happy to see we don't see a lot of Weezing today. I mean, we got Dragonite down there at the bottom with, well, we do have 2 Weezings today. Okay, well, he's still alive and well then. He's
I
still
really hope we
definitely
can
around.
cast a Wheezing.
That would be cool. I definitely like to see Weezing do well. But yeah, I mean, all these mods, it doesn't surprise me that they're up here. They're all going to do well. We're going to see some of them here in Top Cut. My prediction is probably that Urshifu Water ends up in there. I just think that
Yeah.
Urshifu Water always ends up in top.
Definitely. And like even though like I do think that single strike Urshifu is really good, I do feel like that King Gambit kind of does single strike Urshifu's job almost better.
I wouldn't always say better, but it does it differently in a way that really sets him apart and that
Yeah.
really makes him interesting, I think. And he's just a cool mon. And having Defiant on something, while
Right.
Unseen Fist is potentially one of the strongest abilities in the game,
Yeah, it's so broken.
because Unseen Fist is everywhere, though, that also means that like you're not going to see Protects anywhere near as often on stuff,
Right.
and it's not quite as important anymore.
Yeah.
So, it's just reactions to reactions to reactions, and,
Yes.
I love that. I really get excited about that. So, yeah, and I mean, we've seen some pretty good Heatrans today. I don't believe we've actually seen any Landorus Therians come into play recently, maybe other than 1 or 2. But, yeah, I mean, Rillaboom, you're always going to see great stuff. I'm pretty sure that Rillaboom is going to be around for a very, very long time.
Yes.
Now that we know he's getting now that he has Grassy Glide and like is just able to just use it way better than anything else. Like maybe Ogerpon can use it a little better, but like
Yeah.
not a lot of folks run that on Ogerpon. There's just like, but when I look at this screen, these are all massive damage threats.
Yes.
And that's kind of the funny thing. Other than Iron Hands. Iron Hands is the exception. Yeah, and it's still a big damage threat in my opinion. It's just Iron Hands' big value comes from his bulk, not necessarily his damage.
Right. And never forget that Iron Hands can one-hit KO most Fluttermanes with Heavy Slam.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with other things too, if you're lucky.
Right.
So you just got to kind of pay attention to how bulky the enemy Fluttermane is. And,
Exactly.
the Iron Hands versus Fluttermane, it's a classic.
Yeah.
We were seeing it. It has been around since what, Reg B now.
Yeah,
Like
right.
these two boys have been just duking it out, and they're still both on top of the charts, above all these other legendaries, with the exception of Tornadus. And that's great to see. I really like to see that these two Paradox
Yes.
Mons are having as much success as they are. And of course Fluttermane is on here. 40% of teams. I don't think I've seen Fluttermane be less than 35%. So
Right. Yeah.
it's weird to not see Fluttermane right up there in the front. But also it doesn't surprise me. Hands I think is just a good Pokemon.
Yes, exactly. And I'm even surprised to see Tornadus on this list, but also I'm kind of not because of that prankster Tailwind.
No, yeah, I mean, Tornadus doesn't surprise me at all. Tornadus is one of the best setup mons in the game. It sets everybody else up. He has the Rain Dance, he's got the Tailwind. He can do so much into so many other things that are also huge threats in the meta that Tornadus is a no-brainer. He's just Murkrow on steroids.
Right, exactly. And then I feel like even with the introduction of Whimsicott once again into Regulation F, I still feel like that if Tornadus is allowed, I feel like Tornadus is still going to be a major threat.
Yeah, big time. And I really like Whimsicott big time. So, yeah, but anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us for our round 3 game. We had a lot of fun with it, and we're really excited to see you guys in round 4.